All right, let's dive right into today's deep dive. We're dissecting the 2024 U.S. presidential election. And gotta say, it's awesome to see Deus World back with these killer editorials. This timeline, put together by Editor-in-Chief Abhishek Deb. Pure gold. We're not just looking at who won, but the whole wild ride that got us there. It's like a political thriller full of twists and turns ending in a real nail-biter of a finish. So buckle up, folks, because we're going to unpack it all. From a divided Congress to legal battles and even a little Elon Musk sprinkle for good measure. We'll see how this election shook out and what Trump's win means, especially for the U.S. and for India.
It's amazing how this Deus World piece lays it all out right from the start. You get that instant sense of deja vu. Think back to the 2020 and 2022 elections. Democrats snag the White House, but then bam, Republicans grab the House in the midterms.
The political pendulum just couldn't make up its mind, huh? So did this back and forth, this constant tug of war really set the stage for the craziness that was about to hit.
Absolutely. A divided Congress often means gridlock. It's tough to pass any real legislation, any meaningful change. Both parties knew 2024 was going to be a fight for their political lives.
And right off the bat, those red flags popping up about Russian interference. It feels like every U.S. election now comes with this ominous soundtrack of meddling. Is this just the new normal, something we got to get used to?
It's starting to feel that way, unfortunately. The digital age makes it so easy for foreign players to try to tip the scales, and it's incredibly hard to stop. It's not just about hacking voting machines anymore, it's about twisting the narrative online, planting misinformation, fueling those online firestorms, sowing discord. It raises serious questions about how vulnerable democracies are in this digital world.
Then May 2023, the RNC drops a bombshell. They're pulling out of the Commission on Presidential Debates. What was the game plan there?
Bold move, for sure, and a clear sign they were changing their tactics. By ditching the traditional debate format, the RNC was basically seizing control of the narrative. They could dodge any potential traps, avoid those tough questions from moderators they saw as biased. Historically, parties have always tried to play the debate game to their advantage. But this was a whole other level, a power move. It also shows how much the media landscape has shifted. So many voters now getting their news from partisan sources, not those neutral outlets.
Then June rolls around and the Supreme Court drops a decision that just echoes through the country. Roe v. Wade overturned. This wasn't just a legal thing, it was a cultural earthquake.
Totally. The impact was immediate and profound. It became a central battleground in the 2024 election, sparked this huge debate about individual rights versus states' rights, passionate arguments on both sides. Practically speaking, it led to this patchwork of laws across different states. Some states clamping down with strict abortion bans, others fighting to protect access. The impact on women's health care, on the entire political scene, undeniable.
The country was holding its breath, wondering what would come next. And then November 2023, Donald Trump throws his hat in the ring, despite facing a whole heap of legal challenges. Was anyone really surprised?
Trump's return was kind of expected, but the timing was interesting. He was battling lawsuits left and right, but his base, rock solid, they were with him. For them, the legal stuff just reinforced this idea that he was being targeted, unfairly attacked by the establishment.
And those legal battles, they kept going. July 2024, the Supreme Court rules that Trump has immunity for certain things he did while president. What were the implications of that ruling?
Oh, that sparked a whole firestorm about presidential power. And about executive immunity, how far does it really reach? Critics worried it set a dangerous precedent, shielding future presidents from being held accountable for their actions. Raised concerns about checks and balances. Can the judiciary really hold the executive branch in check?
So we've got a divided Congress, the shadow of foreign interference, a landmark Supreme Court decision, and Trump's back in the game. Did 2023 have anything else up its sleeve?
Don't forget those third-party movements. Groups like the No Labels Party and figures like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. enter the race, tapping into this feeling of dissatisfaction with the two-party system.
It's interesting how these third-party candidates often appear when things are politically messy, like a craving for something new, a break from the same old, same old.
Exactly. They might not win often, but they can shake things up, pull votes away from the main parties, force them to address issues they might otherwise ignore. Sometimes they even shift the entire conversation.
At this point, the 2024 election was already more dramatic than any Hollywood movie. And we hadn't even gotten to the actual campaigns yet.
This is where things really start to get interesting. Yeah, so April 2023 rolls around and Biden announces he's running again. Big focus on protecting those democratic values, restoring abortion rights. He's touting his achievements, infrastructure, climate change initiatives, trying to show he's getting things done.
But there were those concerns about his age, his stamina, right? Did that ultimately push him to step aside?
Oh, those concerns were definitely swirling around. By July 2024, Biden realizes the campaign's going to be brutal. He makes the tough call to withdraw, throws his support behind Kamala Harris, and that was huge. Suddenly, you have Harris, the first woman of color nominated for president by a major party.
A truly historic moment sets the stage for a completely unique election. Trump, the ultimate showman, versus Harris, a symbol of change and progress. What a clash of ideologies, of personalities.
And the September 10 debate, oh man, it put those differences on full display. Harris, she's pushing this progressive agenda, social justice, inclusivity. Trump, he's doubling down on his populist message. Economic nationalism, traditional values. It was a battle for the soul of America, playing out right there on TV.
And of course, we can't forget about campaign finance. Those final weeks leading up to the election, millions of dollars flooding both campaigns, raising those questions about transparency, about the influence of big money in politics.
Campaign finance, it's the elephant in the room, always. That sheer amount of money, it makes you wonder who politicians are really working for. Are they representing the people who voted for them or the folks with the fat wallets? It's a thorny issue, no easy answers.
So we reach November 5th, Election Day. This is post-pandemic America. Mail-in voting's become the norm. Did that create any logistical headaches? Or raise concerns about delays, maybe even fraud?
Absolutely, mail-in voting added a whole new layer of complexity, making sure every vote's counted accurately, securely. That was a huge challenge. And those potential delays in getting the results just ramped up the anxiety, fueled all sorts of speculation.
And then the early results start trickling in. And to a lot of people's surprise, it looks like Trump's going to win. Social media explodes, everyone's buzzing, both sides in shock.
Yeah, those early projections, even though they weren't final, they sent shockwaves. It seemed like Trump's message, that populist appeal, it really struck a chord. Despite all the controversies, the legal battles, he was connecting with a huge chunk of the voters.
And of course, Elon Musk, never one to miss a trending topic, jumps right in. Tweets out a celebration of Trump's return. His words seemed to capture how a lot of Trump supporters were feeling. This sense of victory, like a big middle finger to the establishment.
Musk's tweet, it perfectly captures how powerful social media is these days, shaping opinions, amplifying those political messages. You look at the trending hashtags, hashtag Trump 2024, hashtag Migier, it gives you a real-time snapshot of what's driving this election.
So Trump's back in the White House. What does that mean for U.S. policy, both at home and on the world stage?
Well, it signals a continuation of his America First agenda. Domestically, that means cracking down on immigration, protectionist trade policies, less regulation. For his supporters, it's about going back to traditional values, rejecting that globalist approach.
And what about internationally? How's Trump's return going to impact global relations, especially with key allies and those countries the U.S. sees as rivals?
Trump's foreign policy, remember his first term, it was unpredictable, a lot of deal-making, led to some tension with allies, a more confrontational stance towards countries like China and Iran. It was hard to say if he'd soften his approach this time around or double down.
And this brings us to a really interesting angle. India. How might this election result affect the U.S.-India relationship?
India, they've become a crucial partner for the U.S., especially in that Indo-Pacific region. But Trump, he's focused on trade imbalances. His foreign policy decisions could be erratic. So there was some friction there in the past. His return, it brought both uncertainty and opportunity to that relationship.
Sounds like we're about to see a whole new chapter in U.S.-India relations.
Yeah.
One with both potential and some potential bumps in the road.
Definitely the future of that relationship, like a lot of things with U.S. foreign policy under Trump. It's a big question mark.
This election, it felt like a turning point for America. It wasn't just about picking a president. It was about choosing a path for the country.
And the choice, it was a big one. It shows just how deep those political and social divisions run.
The 2024 election, what a roller coaster. Full of controversy, surprises, and a dramatic ending. But, like we always say, the story doesn't stop on Election Day. It's just the start of a new chapter. And the impact of this election, well, we'll be feeling it for years to come.
Yeah, this whole election really puts a spotlight on American democracy, how it's changing, the challenges it's facing in this crazy, fast-paced world.
It's a wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
Like, the conversation doesn't end when the votes are in. It's just the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What questions should we be asking ourselves as we try to navigate this uncharted territory?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How's this election going to reshape the political landscape? Will those divisions just get deeper? Or is there a chance for things to heal, for some progress to happen? What does this all mean for the future of American democracy itself?
Big questions, definitely not easy answers. We can't just sit back and watch. We got to stay informed, talk about this stuff, be active in shaping the future we want.
Exactly. This deep dive, it's given us a framework, a way to understand the 2024 election. But it's just scratching the surface. There's so much more to explore. I'd encourage everyone to dig deeper, look at different perspectives, form their own opinions.
There's a ton of resources out there to help us make sense of this whole political mess. Articles, books, podcasts, documentaries, you name it. Don't be afraid to question your own assumptions. Have those tough conversations with people who see things differently.
It's through those conversations, that back and forth, that we can actually strengthen our democracy, move forward as a nation, even when we disagree.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the 2024 U.S. presidential election. It's been a wild one, full of surprises, but as we've seen, the story's far from over. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those conversations going, folks. Until next time.